Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 39 of Absolute Scenes. You can follow us on Twitter at Scenes Podcast or Instagram, Absolute Scenes Pod, or get in touch with the show, rouseroach.pod@gmail.com. That's a very professional introduction for you, isn't it, Billy? How are you doing?
Wow. Tom, I'm in shock and awe that you've managed to get all of that in the first 10 seconds. It's a massive achievement. Well done. No, I'm good. I've made notes. That's what it is. I'm good. I'm good. Obviously, it's still sunny here in Wales at the time of recording, which is quite a strange thing because it's supposed to have been raining the last 3 days. I don't know how it is in Wolverhampton, but I think we planned to do this as it was when it was raining, but it's not been raining. So it's quite strange to see the sun in Wales. You can tell the tourists from the locals and stuff because most of the locals are covered from head to toe because we haven't seen the rain. We haven't seen the sun in so long. People are worried about what to do and things. But yeah, it's good. How are you?
I'm fine, but the weather the first half of the week was getting me down. The extreme heat, I cannot deal with it. Can't deal with it.
No.
You got any tips for keeping cool, Billy?
Hot drinks are supposed to be good for you, and I don't know whether it's just because I drink tea like there's no tomorrow, but they say, don't they, that you should drink hot drinks as opposed to cold drinks, or ice cream and blah 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 blah. It's hot stuff. Which it keeps me cool, but sun cream, that's the main thing. That's the one thing I have to cover myself in head to toe is loads of Factor 50 or above if I can find it. But just the shade, the general. I haven't got a secret tip to do. I don't know if you have something amazing tip that you're going to share with us now.
My amazing tip is this: stay inside, don't open the curtains, and it's fine. House stays cool then. If you open the windows, it lets hot air into the house, and it's bad. Whereas if you leave it all shady, it's nice and cool. But if I also made the mistake of doing something as well on Tuesday, I think it was. Wednesday. I continued to paint my enormous fence. They say about the Great Wall of China that you can see it from space. Well, I'm sure that you can see me painting the fence from space because it's just taken me ages. Yeah. I've got about 4 or 5 panels that are nearly finished, but the very bottom bit, I've still got another 6 inches to do all across the bottom. And then I've got the stuff that you can't see from the house, so down the side of the house as well. It's going to take ages. It's going to take me days upon days to finish it.
So it seems as though last week when we were speaking, you're saying it's very relaxing and you're enjoying it. And things like that. It seems like that's just gone a complete 180 flip now. You're now like, I hate it. Why have I bothered buying this fence?
I know.
It seems as though I think it's more to do with the weather as well, though. It is doing something, even though it's not, it's not physical in terms of, you're not running a marathon or anything like that. But it just sitting there and painting and just having the scorching heat on you it can be a bit tedious as well, I suppose.
Yeah. But the worst day for the heat for me was on Saturday. I don't know what you were doing, Billy, but I was being Dennis Compton. Do you know who Dennis Compton is?
Is he a cricket player?
He is a cricket player, but he's also a football player. He was one of there's very few people who've done it throughout history, but they've been professional footballers and then professional cricketers. So Dennis Compton played Test cricket for England and then also played for Arsenal.
Okay.
Ian Botham did it as well. He only played for Scunthorpe United, so not quite the same level. But Dennis Compton. So I was Dennis Compton on Saturday. I played 5-a-side football from 9 till 10, and it was scorching. And it was the first time I'd played football. I played football again last night. And I was still equally as bad. I've completely lost all footballing ability. Consistently awful, yeah. So after that, went home, had a shower, and then went to play cricket, 50-over game. So a long old game. We were playing from 12 until about 7:30. It was a long old game, slow. And for some reason as well, Billy, cricket's usually an 11-a-side game. Well, at the moment, we've just let anybody play. So it was 12 players against 13 players on Saturday. So to win the game, we needed to take 12 wickets. Usually you need to take 10. But I had a hell of a game, Billy. I could either 4, maybe 5. I'm going to say 5 stumpings. So as a wicket keeper, that's if the batsman leaves their ground and you quickly whip the bails off. And I took 2 catches. I hadn't taken a catch for 2 years. Very similar to my winning or losing streak and the 6 hitting streak. But I had a really good game. And I've got to say, the scoring, so the person who's scoring cocked up, messed up, because I put on a partnership with somebody else, over 100 we put on together. And I know for a fact that I hit about 4 fours. So when you go and check the book, you see 27 is what they said I scored. But then you look at each individual run, and they only had me down for hitting 2 fours. So it's like, well, that's wrong, because I definitely hit 4. So it's just a little bit frustrating, Billy. A little bit frustrating that I didn't get quite the recognition that I should have.
That you deserved. Yeah. Is there a man of the match in cricket? There is a man of the match in cricket, isn't there?
There will, but I don't think I would have won that, because the boy I was batting with scored over 100, which you could argue perhaps he didn't, because the 2 fours that I hit must have gone to him. So for his 105, take away 8, that's not 100 anymore. So, don't know. But, I don't want to say I was man of the match, Billy, but if you're saying that I'm man of the match, then I'll take that.
But I don't know how it's worked in cricket, whether they have different, because obviously you've got the fielders and the batters, even though they're the same, but obviously the batters and things like that. But considering how many wickets you've taken, or stumpings or whatever they are called, obviously my terminology is not on point. But I'd award it. I'll award you it, Tom, for this week.
Thank you.
But so is the winning streak still alive?
The winning streak is alive and kicking, Billy. It's going well. I think that's now, I think it's 4 games in a row. But they're on Saturday, this Saturday, or tomorrow, the time of recording, it's going to be put to the test, because the captain that we're playing against has not lost a single game. So I've been on his team for the last 2 or 3 weeks, which is why I've won almost every time. But now we're against him, so it's going to be a challenge. But it's one that I think we can rise to.
I was going to say we should start a sweepstake for all our listeners, all our 2 listeners, it's
my mom and your mom,
to predict how long this streak's going to go. But we'll wait probably until next week to see if it's worth doing, because it'll probably end tomorrow now that we've mentioned it.
Maybe. So just a quick, as we're talking about cricket, I hope that Billy, you're excited. Australia are coming. They are coming for some one-day international games.
I haven't managed to contain my excitement, so it's been a real test of me being able to contain my excitement and not, ring you up and say, "Look, please, can we go? Please, can we go?" Tom, I didn't realise. I'm not going to lie. I've been
what does that
busy
mean?
with there's. Well, I'm guessing Australia are coming over, and then they're going to come and play for one day, and then they're going to go home.
No, so they're playing for a few for a few one-day games. So this is my challenge to you, Billy, is that you need to sit and watch one of these games. So I'm not sure when they're going to be. I expect they'll be in September time, or maybe at the end of August, because at the moment they're still playing Test match cricket against Pakistan. There was a very, very impressive win for England last Saturday. It was against all odds. They needed to score 270 in the last day, and they managed to do it. Chris Wokes, not Ben Stokes, Chris Wokes scored 84 not out to win them the game. Ben Stokes, in fact, is not going to play cricket for the rest of the summer. He's had to travel back to New Zealand for a family matter, which I assume his dad was ill during the winter, so I assume it's not good news there. So there's no Ben Stokes for the rest of the summer, unfortunately. But there's plenty of other opportunities for other people to stand up and be counted.
I had seen that there was on the BBC about Jimmy Anderson. That was something about him not being done, whether they're thinking of him retiring, whether people are calling for him to retire and he's saying, no, I'm not done, and things like that. But the Burnley boys got to carry on. He's the only affiliation that I've got so far to cricket is Jimmy Anderson. So please don't retire.
To put it into perspective, there's nobody else in the history of the game, no other fast bowler in the history of the game who's taken more wickets than him. I think he needs 9 more wickets at the time of recording to get to 600, which would be unbelievable to get that number of wickets. And he will do that this summer if he continues to play. And then he's just turned 38 as well, so he's got another. Usually fast bowlers have retired by now, but he just seems to be, keeping on going at it. And I think there's quite a few sportsmen who this lockdown might have helped prolong their careers, and I think Jimmy Anderson could be one of them. But let's move on, Billy, to a more somber topic for both of us. Who wants to talk about their European exit first, me or you? You, please.
Well, I'll talk about mine purely because we had an issue at my household. BT, so obviously Champions League is shown on BT, and we have our internet is provided by BT, and normally we get it through. It's free to use the BT app to watch the Champions League or whatever sports you want. BT Sport to watch BT Sport. However, they've changed it now so that you can't download. It won't work on a laptop or a computer or anything like that. It has to be a phone. To use the BT app, it has to be a phone. This is what my dad was telling me as he was speaking to them. So you can only watch it on like a mobile device. So we weren't able to watch. Well, we were all set up ready to watch it, and then Chelsea went 2-0 down by the time we'd managed to speak to BT and them tell us, no, you need to pay the subscription service now rather than using the apps, because Windows aren't good. So I didn't watch the game on against Bayern Munich. I saw the highlights, and it was just a continued theme throughout the season, defending just being a common theme. So, but I think most people, as I said, we weren't expected to win that game. We weren't expecting to go through. It was, and you're looking through, I think we had like 5 youth players on the bench. Only Giroud came on. We had injuries, obviously Azpilicueta and Alonso were suspended, and then Alonso and there was one other player who was suspended. 2 players were suspended. I can't remember off the top. I think it might have been Jorginho was suspended, and then Azpilicueta and Pulisic were out injured. So we'd lost 4. On top of we've obviously lost. Willian wasn't playing, and Pedro I think was on the bench, but we weren't expecting to. If we'd have got through, it'd have been some miracle. And I think Munich now they'd be my favourites probably to go and win the tournament now, just because when they played as if you consider they absolutely battered us back in February, I think it was, we played them 3-0, and they I'm not saying we're the benchmark, if you can beat us you can win the Champions League, but they tore us apart, and they did it again this week just gone. They just look like the team in form. I think they went the whole of their restart lockdown. They won all their games. They're the team in form throughout the whole of Europe. So I'm struggling to see. I know they've got Barcelona next, which is difficult, but it's going to be moving forward. I think Lampard said it's a learning experience for the majority of them. And it shows, in a way, it's a positive because it shows if we want to get there, what we need to do. Obviously, we've got 2 new signings. We're linked with, I think, everyone under the sun at the minute to come to us. So I'm optimistic for next season. Depending on who else joins, but yeah, it was one of those things. We're back there next season, and if we can I don't think we've won a knockout game in the Champions League for, I think it's something like 6 years or something ridiculous, which I'm quite shocked. I know, like, we've had the Europa League and things like that. We had. So when you look at that statistic, we might have only been in the Champions League like 3 out of the 6 years. Yeah. But yeah, it's. If we can better that next season, and it's the same in the league, I think we'll be okay. But I know we've just recorded my podcast, and we were talking about Wolves on that and your European experience. How are you feeling after it coming to it was an unfortunate end what I've seen and heard, you're unlucky. I think you missed a penalty, didn't you? Jimenez missed a penalty, and they scored in the last few minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think as soon as the game finished, I tweeted out that we bottled it, but it just felt like we didn't really go for it. I mean, Sevilla are a seasoned Europa League team. They might not have the best players in the world, but they're just experienced in getting through these knockout games. And we let them have a lot of possession. We let them have possession on the edge of the box for a lot of the game. They had 12, 13 corners, something like that. We didn't have a single corner. We had 2 shots on target. One of them was a header in the first 30 seconds from Jimenez, and the other one was the missed penalty. Apart from that, we didn't get out of our own half, really. So it's disappointing, but I think if you'd have offered me a quarter-final at the beginning of the season and 7th place again, I would have bitten your hand off. But unfortunately, Chelsea couldn't win the FA Cup for us, so we're without European football. But it also feels like we've really missed an opportunity, because we at one point we were 2 or 3 points away from third with 6 games to go. And looking at the fixtures that we had on paper, we should have picked up a lot more points than we did. The 2 points that we dropped against Burnley, we lost against Sheffield United in the last kick of the game. Didn't turn up to the Chelsea game. We shot ourselves in the foot, really. We should have 100% finished in the top 6. But then it's really difficult. And there's a huge split at the moment on Facebook, Twitter, and stuff like that with Wolves fans, because there's a huge portion of the Wolves fans that is like me, saying that we've missed a huge opportunity this season because the league was so open, because there's no way that Tottenham and Arsenal are going to be as weak as they were this season. Next season, they're going to be stronger. It was the time for us to try and finish in the top 4 even. But then there's another huge section of the Wolves fans that are saying that we were in League One 7 years ago. We were losing to Gillingham 7 years ago. Well, that's all very well, but if you keep thinking like that, you're going to end up getting relegated, or end up going to be stagnating.
Back with Gillingham.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm really, really pleased. In hindsight, like I said earlier on the other podcast about the trip to Turin was unbelievable. And then there's lots of other Wolves fans who've gone to other places as well, and they've had the time of their lives. I just hope that it's not the only time. I hope that it's not like Birmingham City once played in Europe and that was it. They never played in there again. I hope that personally, I think it might help us next season if we can keep hold of some of the key players, because I think we might really go out and try and win the FA Cup or the League Cup or something like that and make that our priority. And
I was going to say,
go on.
I was going to say that I think looking at, it's, similarities, obviously Burnley, it's completely different. But when Burnley got into the Europa League, and, the team which hasn't done it before, and, they really struggled within the league as well. They went from, it shows now that, they're able to maintain, the Premier League status, but it was obviously a worry. I don't think with Wolves it was a worry. I think you'd have stayed up, but the fact that you managed to finish 7th and get to where you've got, maybe the fact that you haven't had Champions League for the remaining Champions League, Europa League for the remaining end of the season might have helped you. It might not have helped you, maintain that 7th position. But I think moving forward, it's put you in a good position now, because next season, obviously, you're not going to have Europe. The Tottenham and Arsenal are both going to have Europe. Leicester as well. All the teams now around you, other than yourselves, aren't going to be in Europe. So it's a case of you can focus purely on, solidifying yourself as a top 8 team, which is what you are at the minute, and like trying to break that barrier. Because you look at teams like Everton now, they're going to be trying to. I think they're going to try and knock on the door. I don't think Ancelotti's going to be happy finishing 10th or 9th. He's going to want to, for them to get him, they must have, to back him and things like that. It's going to be interesting next season. But I think, like you said, if you can keep the key players, because I think there's been rumours of Jimenez going and Neves going. I don't think Patricio. There was another player, Traore, going. Yeah. Nuno, I don't even see Nuno going, but I can't see where Nuno would, particularly want to go. In terms of a step up. There's no big teams in Europe who are needing a manager at the minute. Obviously Juventus now have just sacked Sarri and Pirlo's gone there, but I can't see them there being anywhere which will tempt, because he's built that team, and it's if he goes somewhere else, he's going to take, it's going to take 2 or 3 years for them to do. But yeah, if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be quietly optimistic for next season. I think at the minute it's all to do with the recruitment of the teams. Chelsea fans at the minute are on Twitter saying next season we should, get to the knockout stages of the Champions League, win a cup, and finish third, reducing the gap between City and Liverpool. Reducing the gap from City to Liverpool. Well, to me, that might be a bit too much to ask. In a second season where it's going to be Lampard's. This next season going to be Lampard's first season with his team, whereas this season he's just inherited a team. It's a case of, but you look at Watford and they've just appointed the next manager that they're going to sack. It's a results-driven game, and unfortunately, if things don't go Lampard's way or anyone's way, if things drop off, I don't know whether Wolves, what it would take for Wolves to sack Nuno, but with Chelsea, Chelsea can finish second and get sacked. So Lampard's obviously got a target on his back no matter what. But it's thing. But are you still sticking with Man City for your pick because they had a good result against Madrid?
I think.
They've got Lyon now, haven't they?
They've got Lyon, I think, on Saturday, haven't they? It's Bayern against Barca tonight, and then City Lyon on Saturday. I'd like to say that they get past Lyon quite easily. However, saying that, I don't know if you watched either of the 2 games so far, but Atalanta were 1-0 up against PSG until the last seconds of the game, and then PSG turned it around. Similarly, Leipzig scored in the last seconds or last couple of minutes against Atletico. Very fortunate deflection. So they are through, and Madrid, our underdogs from last week, out.
Yeah.
So,
but I think with them, that was going on Madrid. I think they are when I went to watch them against Liverpool, they aren't a beautiful team to watch. They're they just disrupt teams, and for a long time they were doing it. But I think it was just a case of Leipzig were just able to break them down. I think João Felix apparently had a blinder of a game when he came on. From what I've seen on Twitter, he was phenomenal. Phenomena. But yeah, it's going to be one of those things. It's quite difficult especially because it's a one-legged tie. It obviously the time management of things. I think Atletico, it probably would have suited them over 2 legs because they can manage it like they did against Liverpool. But I'm going to go with Munich for my winners, and you can stick with City.
Yeah, I'll stick with City, yeah. So I want you to try and guess, Billy, what these 3 teams were doing in the 2007-2008 season. Okay?
Okay.
So we'll start
I'll try not to look at my phone because I think you've obviously written them down and sent me a picture.
Okay. So Manchester City, last game of the season, 2008. What happened?
So this one is they lost 8-1, but I can't remember to who.
So they lost
Middlesbrough.
It was Middlesbrough, yeah. So they lost 8-1 to Middlesbrough. Now they're in the Champions League quarter-final. PSG, where did they finish in the league in 2007-2008?
They'd have been mid-table, wouldn't they?
They were 16th.
I think that was during, Lyon. That was during Lyon's dominance. I think when they were winning it, they won it. Well, not as much as PSG have won it now, but I know they won it for like 5 years or so.
Yeah. Okay, and then RB Leipzig, what were they doing?
They weren't. Did they not? Did they? What was it? 2011.
2007.
2007. They didn't exist, did they not? I think it was.
No.
They were.
They did not exist at all. So
the only one I knew there, Tom. The only one I'd seen on the phone was the Man City one. I hadn't seen the other 2, but I knew it was something to do with PSG. I remember it saying quite recently about the last time they got this far or something was pre the money. Before they had all this money and injection and stuff, when they had like Ronaldinho and things like that playing for them. I remember them because when I went to France, I got a Lyon shirt, and Lyon were the team they were the big team there, and PSG were hated by everyone, which they probably still are. But yeah, it's thing. But yeah, sorry Tom, I ruined your game there by looking at the answers pretty hard.
Yeah. But yeah, just looking at the top 6 of the French league that year. So you had Lyon first, then Bordeaux, Marseille, Nancy, Saint-Etienne, and Rennes as the top 6.
Yeah.
And that was when the Intertoto Cup still existed. But PSG managed to qualify for the UEFA Cup first round, which I assume must have meant that they won the French Cup or something like that year. So it's a modern phenomenon, isn't it? Because if you look, Manchester City pre-money, they were nothing. Chelsea was sort of top 6 or 7.
We were knocking on the door.
But then they'd have a really terrible season now, wouldn't they?
Well, we still do that now, but not to that extent. No, yeah, it's becoming the norm now. Money. I know. I saw. I would, with the salary cap now being introduced in League One and League Two, that's going to be interesting to see how that impacts. I know a lot of people are worried that it's going to increase the gulf between. You look at teams like Sunderland now. They're, when they, I think they've got like the way that it's going to work is they're going to have like a grace period to if they get relegated and things like that. Whereas if a team like Sunderland's or like when Wolves went down, if they're going to go down, they're going to go straight back up because of the players that they've got are going to be at such a bigger gap. But it'll be one of those things to look out for. As a fan of one of these teams which have brought success, I obviously can't really comment too much on it. But it's just it's going to get more and more. Obviously they keep talking about this European Super League. I don't know whether it'll happen. I'd have thought this would have caused it to happen. Now would have been everything with the pandemic and things. But it's one of those things. But
what's your view on wage caps then? Because they do it in rugby, don't they? They have
in the Super League. Yeah. I think it'll be in the long haul. It'll probably benefit. Especially, it'll keep the clubs afloat. You look now that Macclesfield have just been sent down a league. Bury, obviously, they've been expelled, and now they're coming back. Charlton are now another team which are looking at it. You look at Wigan. It's going to benefit. Yeah, it's going to benefit those. It's going to benefit the clubs now to stay afloat and things like that in case anything like this ever happens again. But like I said, the gulf is going to be massive. Whether it creeps, they're on about. I think I saw somewhere it's going to be something like 20 million for the championship they were looking at doing. So I think it's like 3 million in the League Two, and then 1.5 million in League One, 3 million in League One, 1.5 million in League Two, and then 20 million in the Championship. So there's that's a massive, it's a massive jump, even between the two leagues itself. Going from, but then you look at the Premier League. Like Willian now's just left Chelsea, and apparently he's got a 3-year contract, and he's on 220 grand a week.
Yeah, there's a lot of criticism about that because of them.
Yeah, well, obviously
making so many people redundant.
And that's why I think Chelsea, fair play to them. We've got all this money, and yet we stuck to our guns and we were like, we're not going to pay a 30. Well, he's 32 now, so by the time the contract ends, he's going to be 35. We're not going to be paying a 35-year-old 220 grand a week when he's probably not going to be the same player. He was. He was a great servant to the club and things like that, but. It's going to be one of those things where I think the one positive I've got from this the salary cap in particular, is it includes agent fees. So agent, it's going to stop. I think that's what's going to happen, and is the influence agents have, especially over the lower clubs, is going to be, it's going to have a massive effect on that. It's going to stop agents getting paid massive payouts. I know Wolves in particular are one of the clubs which have benefited from agents with their affiliation, but it's going to be interesting now to see how it changes the landscape, whether it works its way up, because it's only in England at the minute. I don't think many other countries have started it, so I don't think they'll put it higher up until it comes across the board.
So, well, you mentioned Sunderland just now. if we take them as an example, their fans might argue that they have the right to be in at least the Championship, if not the Premier League. They've been there for such a long time.
Yeah.
Is it unfair to put such restrictions on a club that could have the financial capabilities to pay players more? Or
I think
is it unfair to do it on a little part of the whole Football League structure? Should it not be on the whole Football League?
I think I know with Sunderland in particular, they were one of the cases where they were arguing a case of they will get more. So that I think 3 million. They will get that income purely from their like gate receipts. So they're saying that because they can fill their stadium, they should be entitled to be able to pay their players more because of that. Whether they're going to look into a workaround or not, it's been voted in by the clubs, I'm presuming. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. So it's a case of, I think Sunderland now will try, obviously, and get out of League One. Obviously, that's the aim for any of the clubs anyway. But it'll be a case of they'll try even harder now to make sure. But it's to stop, look at players like Jack Rodwell, who was down there for however long and running out his contract on whatever wage he was on. There must be now a way they'll put into their contracts, because they've got to wait. So the way it's going to work, I think, from what I've read, is their contracts. If you've signed, like for example, now, if you've got a 5-year contract and you signed that last season on a wage, it's only the players who sign new contracts as of this year. So obviously, like teams like Sunderland, so it could be like 5 years before this is properly implemented anyway, depending on the contract length. Because I don't think those players will be taken into the overall figure or whatever, because they obviously could be something like points deductions and things like that. But in the long run, it's obviously in players' contracts now, it's going to be a case of they'll have, if they get relegated, it'll be an automatic. If you get relegated, your wage will drop to this because of, and it's not a case of, it'll be across the whole board, which will help. In particular, you look at, there's probably, like I think you look like Ake now going to Man City. For that deal to have gone through so quick, it must have been in his contract that he can go.
Yeah,
it's a relegation clause, blah 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 blah. So there'll just be more of that sort of thing, I think, moving forward. But it's down to the clubs now to get out of. You look at Sunderland now, they've been mismanaged and dropped down to League One. Similar to Wolves now, it was the same when they went down. Wolves have managed to get back up, so it's down to Sunderland now to do the same. Leeds have finally done it after however many years. Yeah. So it can be done, but it's just going to make it more difficult, which is going to be. I think it'll be a lot more yo-yo clubs, going up and down.
Yeah, right. I just want to mention the next section of the podcast. There's been a hashtag that's occurred over the last couple of days. Hashtag let fans in. And this tends to be from lower league clubs in particular, because obviously a huge portion of their income comes from gate receipts. I know that a friend of mine, Robbie, who's a Dover fan, they've had to put all of their players up for sale. Basically, the club's going to go bust, and I imagine that they won't be the only one. There'll be lots and lots of conference clubs that that's the case for them. But they're arguing that they should be allowed to let fans in. However, I'm not sure. I've just seen it on Twitter, but I'm not sure from what article it came from. But the guidelines are going to be that fans could be allowed in the stadiums from October onwards, but there's to be no music played before the games. There's to be no singing, no chanting, or no shouting. Can you imagine going to a football match and you're not allowed to shout at the referee or at the players or celebrate a goal?
It's gonna be it's gonna like be the norm. I think I don't know. I'm not gonna look now, but I know it's the snooker. The snooker's being played at the minute in Crucible, and they're on about that being one of the trial venues now. Is the final of the snooker World Championships which I think is this weekend. It might even be tomorrow, I think, where they're going to trial fans coming in. But it's a case of in terms of that's different. they don't do that in snooker. You don't shout and sing and cheer, in snooker. So it's different. It's a different culture. Whereas in football, it's such a part of the game that it's going to be how they're going to police it. If you're singing, you're going to get thrown out. Is that what they're going to do? It's difficult. I don't know how they get around doing it. Is there a way they could, like clubs now? I know I'm just thinking off the top of my head, obviously the practicality of this, but like, can you pay for, teams like that now? Can the league allow them to do like some subscription service where they can stream their fixtures and the fans pay, instead of paying to go and watch them in the stadium, they can pay to watch them online and things like that, just to help the clubs along the lines, especially the lower league ones. But I don't know what the workaround is. You look around, people went out, with the masks and things like that. They'll probably be compulsory if you go to a stadium and things like that. And you look at when they were, the seating, it's going to be like a third or even a quarter of the stadium's only going to be able to be filled. You're not going to be able to fill it. So I don't know what, in terms of the money that they'd receive, I don't know, but it's going to be difficult, especially if things are carrying on the way they are with the pandemic. It could come, we're going back up, and we're locked back in. No one, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think the fans should. It does, but as a fan, you go. It's different for me because I am an armchair fan, whereas you go to the games, Tom. So if you went to a game and you weren't allowed to sing, shout, and things like that, and you just had to sit there and be silent and not do anything, it'd be a completely different thing for you. Whereas, for me, I can shout and scream as much as I want at home. That's why I'm suggesting maybe the streaming things and stuff. But you are at a much better position, I think, than me to comment about the fans.
Well,
going back,
it would
I don't know what you think.
It would be like going to a game at Old Trafford or the Emirates or Stamford Bridge every single week if you weren't allowed to make any noise. But
yeah,
I'd say Tuesday, all day Tuesday, building up to the quarterfinal against Sevilla, I didn't feel like it was a big game for Wolves because it just didn't. Because the fact that there was going to be no fans there, even if it was away from home and I wouldn't have been able to have gone, it would have still felt like a big game because I would have known that there would be a couple of thousand Wolves fans travelling out to Sevilla or to Germany even, and they would have been creating an atmosphere. But it was just, I think it got to me on Tuesday that I was just so sad that I knew that I couldn't be there. The Wolves' biggest game in my lifetime, and I wasn't going to be there. The fact that now thinking about the start of the season in less than a month's time, and I won't be there. And I've missed Wolves games in the past. I've missed, I haven't been to games at Molineux, but I mean, you know yourself that Dave Burnley, that bloke has left jobs that have not let him travel to Scunthorpe on a Thursday night to watch Burnley. There are so many people who it's their life traveling to follow these teams, and it's desperately sad that it doesn't look like there's going to be a solution or an end to having games behind closed doors for a long, long time. I mean, I would be shocked if we see a game in the ground next season in this country, and in particular for Wolves fans and Albion fans, we've waited 8 years to play each other in a Black Country derby, and we will be playing each other next year, but it will be completely empty, and it will just be another game. There will be no atmosphere, and it'll be rubbish. It'll be terrible. But
I think as well, I don't know whether there'll be a massive influence from UEFA, but obviously with the Euros happening next season now, at the end in the summer, aren't they? Whether that's going to, because obviously if that sets a precedent that fans can, that's another dynamic now. You're thinking, are they going to allow fans from all over the world to travel to those venues wherever they are now? Because obviously that could change. But if fans are starting to be allowed, football fans are starting to be allowed back into stadiums, is there going to be are people going to start to assume, we can go to we're going to be allowed to go there and stuff? Whether are UEFA themselves going to say, right, for this whole season until September 21, there's going to be no fans in stadiums, and they're going to just set that blanket statement across the board. But I don't know, in terms of the financial things, like I just saw the FA Cup now is obviously only going to be one-legged, and the prize money's been cut in half. So now, to me, that suggests that they hopefully they're using that money to help support the lower clubs. But I think it's everyone argues in case of the big clubs should support the lower clubs, but it's a case of how do you decide which clubs support the other clubs? You look now like Wigan. Now they were a Premier League team not too long ago. They've been in financial trouble. There's other teams. Sunderland were probably the same. There's your fortune can change that quick in football. From you being at the top, and then you just get one poor miss, like you look at like QPR a few years ago when they were just throwing money at teams. We'll probably talk about this in another episode that we're going to probably record at some point about Premier League teams. But there's so many teams which were poorly managed during their time in the Premier League, or even going up, probably from League One to the Championship. That it's going to, I think it's going to become more. The leagues are going to have to look in the ownership a lot more, because it's even like, for example, like Mike Ashley now with Sports Direct, just as an example, if something happens to his business outside of football, there's nothing the league can do about that. If Sports Direct went bust, he's lost all his money, all his assets. That's going to then impact Newcastle. So it's the same with like Chelsea with the Russian billionaire. If something happens in Russia, what is it expected that teams will bail them out? Because we're a massive team. I don't know. It's a sore subject, but
I don't agree with.
We could spend an hour talking about it.
I don't agree with the bigger teams supporting the smaller teams, because otherwise there's no competition. Then if every club gets paired up with a team in League Two, then everybody's the same level, aren't they? You have to. That's how you build success, is by managing the club carefully and living within your means. And then
I know they do it in Germany, don't they? Like Munich, you look at the likes of Munich now. They obviously, I think, support the majority of the teams lower down. I think it's something that they do, and I think it shows them, because literally they'll just go, right, I'm having that player, and I'll have that player, and I'll have that player, and they just seem to. It's got a lot better in terms of over there. There's been more. You look at like the Dortmund and Leipzig now. But again, Leipzig are another one where they've, the Red Bull. They're right. So Red Bull now. That's how many have they got? 4 clubs. The Salzburg, the one in New York, Leipzig, and I think they've got another one in another league. So if Red Bull, for all intents and purposes, went bust, that's 4 teams now that are just going to be gone from the footballing world. It's hard. It's going to be. There's no right answer. Someone is, no matter what they decide, someone is going to get upset. Unfortunately, that's the truth of I think it's the same with everything at the minute. Someone's going to be upset. As we'll probably get onto getting upset.
Talking of people getting upset, let's talk about results day. Then we're both teachers. It's probably affected you a lot more than me, being a primary school teacher. But 40% of students in England got given lower results than they got on their teacher assessment and on their predicted grades. So Boris Johnson's algorithm has given them lower grades 40% of the time. So how did it affect you, Billy? Do you have any stories that you are able to tell?
So A-levels went out yesterday and GCSEs are out next week. So I don't know the full extent, but I think from what I've seen that we were okay in terms of from my subjects, but that might be because of my subject being a coursework-based subject as opposed to an exam-based subject. I think the ones which have been affected the worst are the exam-based subjects, because that they've had to predict an exam result, and I think that's what's caused. But I don't know how you fared. I think we have spoke about this on a previous podcast in terms of our results, but I know I absolutely ballsed up my A-levels. I was predicted A's and B's, and through my own fault, I ended up getting C's, and I got C's and D's, and changed. I'd already decided by that point. By the time I'd sat my exams, I knew I was going to fail or whatever. And went to uni, still went to uni differently and stuff. So I think it is. I can understand everyone is upset, but I can also understand the argument of teachers do predict grades, which I don't know how it is in your school, but we're expected to give them aspirational targets. So, for example, if they're capable of getting a B, you predict them an A. You set them the target of an A. So pupils might be, we might be telling to a pupil, right, you can get an A, you can get an A, you can get an A. But it's a case of they're being set something, above to aspire to. So then, if that pupil's used to hearing that they're going to get an A, and then they end up, don't get me wrong, they've gone now down to a C, that's different. Whereas, or even a D, then yeah, that they've massively dropped off. There was one thing I saw on Twitter where there was a cohort of so it was a new subject being taught. There were 7 pupils in the class, and they had to be ranked from 1 to 7, obviously. And there was 1A. They were awarded an A, a B, a C, D, E. So literally, the 7 pupils in that class, there was 1 of each grade, and that was how they were awarded. Whereas it might not have been the case. Like I had 7 pupils in my A-level class, and I didn't have. That wasn't the case with what they were awarded for me. It's difficult. I really don't know what the answer is. Obviously the algorithm, but apparently there was a 15%. It might be in England. It's going to be different in Wales. I don't know what the statistic is in Wales. In England, it was something like teachers predicted a 15% increase in grades, which I don't know. But I think the argument is as well. Obviously, it's unjust that people from richer backgrounds or more affluent areas are getting better grades than those in poorer backgrounds. But I don't know. But the main thing that I want to say about it is, it seems like it's the end of the world at the time, but it does get better. For example, my brother, he didn't go to uni. He decided not to go to uni. He got, the grades he got were great, and he could have gone. He did go to uni, and he's now working as an IT technician. And he's 19, and he has just bought a BMW. Wow. He needed a new car last week, and so at the age of 19, he has had a better car than I think any of our friends have had. And we're all teachers nearly 30, and that's what it's again materialistic if you're into that sort of thing. When he said to me, "Oh, when have you had a car like this?" and I went, "Yeah, but I've been to all over the world traveling and things, so that's what you want, this is what I want." So it's different, and people, so it's not the measure of success, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think at the minute people are, especially yesterday, I think a lot of people were daunted by the facts, but it's definitely something people should, there is, if you want to get somewhere, you'll be able to get there and stuff.
I was thinking yesterday about how sad it must have been to be in year 11 or year 13 this year and not have what are very character building experiences of building up towards leaving school, and having to say goodbye to 100 people or so that you've been with for 7 years at school, or 14 years if you've known them since primary school. They're huge moments in your life that I certainly look back on fondly. That's what I like. I couldn't even tell you what results that I got really at GCSE level, particularly, and A level. I don't know anymore. But it's the experiences that you'll have during school that will stay with you for a long time. So yeah, I know that some of Billy's students listen to this, perhaps. So if you haven't got the results that you want, don't worry, because I think the chance to do retakes and resits, I think, are there.
There'll be a way. They're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, I did lots of resits.
There'll be options a way to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom, go on.
And so if you believe in yourself, you could be making a podcast that 10 people listen to every week as well. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
But
believe that.
I think we're coming towards an end of the podcast, Billy. The only other thing I had written down was GTA, because I've played so much of it this week.
Oh, yeah.
I've become obsessed with it. yesterday I played it for about 5 or 6 hours. I had to set an alarm on my phone so that I didn't play it for hours today because I've had stuff to do. But it's such a good game. Such a good game.
Have they've released, haven't they? I saw the new FIFA trailer or whatever for the next game and stuff. And apparently, a lot of people have said on Twitter that it's going to be similar to Football Manager. They've got like the simulated career modes thing where it's going to have like you can jump into the game. Well, unlike Football Manager, you can jump into the game and take over it mid game. So you can simulate the game and then make the subs and things like that, and then jump in the key moments. So I think they like show like, oh, there's a penalty awarded, and then the player jumps in to take the penalty.
Okay.
So it's going to be something different. It's different to what's been normally done on there. For someone who just played every game anyway, it's not going to change that much if I was going to go and buy it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas being able to simulate, I know my brother simulates some of his games and stuff, so it's going to, the way he plays the game will be different. And you can, they brought back Loan to Buy, which I didn't realise had gone until we played it together as when we were doing the thing. Whereas that's something that I took advantage of back in university. But I'm glad to hear you're making the most of this nice weather, Tom, by sitting indoors playing Grand Theft Auto.
Absolutely. And on that note, Billy, I think we'll call it a day. Another enjoyable podcast. Hopefully, the 10 people that listen will enjoy it. I've only just recently worked out how to rate podcasts. So we've now got a 5-star review on Acast from me. We've also got a 5-star review on iTunes from me. So if you do listen to this on whatever you listen to it on, find the way to rate it, and we'll be flying up those charts to at least number 7,000, and we can start making some money, perhaps. I doubt it.
That'll be living the dream, Tom. Living the dream.
Imagine.
Cool.
But anyway, I'll see you all next week for episode number 40. We're closing in on the half century. All right, see you all. Bye.
Bye.